A lot has been said about the depreciation of electric cars recently, and today I'm going to show you exactly how bad that is. I'm going to show you 5 cars that you could buy in 2022 brand new and have depreciated a significant amount in just 2 years. At the same time, all 5 are pretty fast, so do hit the like button if you see more videos like this, subscribe as well if you're new. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. It's an obvious one to be kicking this video off with, a car that's garnered a lot of headlines recently for its depreciation, but it's actually the least most depreciated car on this list by quite a long way. It's the Porsche Taycan 4S, whether it's in Sport Turismo, Cross Turismo or standard saloon spec, which is a lovely looking car in whichever guise you go for, but more importantly has gone from being £95,000 for a base model new in 2022, give or take, to around £63,000 the bottom end for a 2022 example today. You can get down to sub 50k if you buy yourself a model from 2020 as well, which is pretty crazy. Typically a 2022 model sits at around or under the 67k mark as well. That means annual depreciation of £16,000, total of double that of course, which is equal to 33.68% gone in just 2 years. That's actually 13% less than the next car on this list, so prepare yourself for that. For that kind of money you'll be getting yourself into the third fastest EV on this list, which produces 563 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. Pretty insane performance for a 5-seat family car. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, as I'm not a big EV guy personally, but the Taycan Sport Turismo in particular is one of the best looking cars that you can see out there on the roads, at least in my opinion, at least when you compare it to other equally practical cars. What's nice about it is that it's a Porsche first and an electric car second, so the interior isn't crazy different to what you'd find in a Panamera, whereas other brands like to really push the boat out with different faux futuristic looking interiors on their electric stuff, which I think probably has less longevity to it. Generally these have been pretty reliable, but owners have complained about battery life, particularly in winter, as range is no more than around 288 miles on a single charge at the best of times. Next up we have a car that shares the same platform as well as of course umbrella company as the Taycan we just spoke about. It's the Audi E-Tron GT, which was Audi's third fully electric car from the e-tron sub-brand, following on from a couple of SUVs. Many reviews have referred to it as a cheaper Taycan, and to be honest, it isn't actually that much cheaper, around £88,000 new in 2022 with no spec options, so saving 7k over the Taycan. It would have worked out more expensive in just 2 years, however, as these have now dropped by a hair over 46% in value at £40,500 total. So despite its recent depreciation reputation, the Taycan would have actually worked out the cheaper car on just purchase and depreciation costs alone over 2 years, which is pretty crazy to think about. That's because today the e-tron GT starts at around £47,500 and mostly sits at under 53k, so it's reached in 2 years what 2020 Taycans have reached in 4. This EV makes 522 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4 seconds, 0.1 seconds slower than the Taycan, which is much of a muchness when you think about it, and 4 seconds is still bonkers performance. I personally believe if you look at this car side on and squint, it is pretty much a Taycan saloon aesthetically, particularly in the more aggressive specs. It's the front end vents behind the wheels in particular that seem to tie the two cars together, though it's fair to say that it has a little bit more of a fastback design all in, almost A7-esque towards the rear. That's mostly because it's not just the platform, but 40% of the parts on the e-tron GT are shared directly with the Taycan. Interestingly though, it did win the most beautiful car of the year, or the golden steering wheel, in 2021. Theoretically the best tests of this show that it will manage 273 miles total on a single charge, though Audi conservatively suggest a maximum of 238 miles. Either way, at any typical charging station that's probably around 50 to 60 quid a charge, so not hugely dissimilar to an average petrol or diesel car. Another German car now, in fact 4 of the cars on this list come from Germany. It's the BMW i4 M50, which is effectively the closest thing you can get to an electric BMW M4, given it's pretty rapid. For real though, the fact that this EV makes 536 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds means that it actually matches the new M4 on 0 to 60 and is more powerful, so in a spec off, the i4 is the one to go for. However, from a depreciation perspective, it's a different story. The M50 would have cost you around £71,000 new with no spec options, but today you'll find it listed for a minimum of around £38,000, with most sitting at around £48,000 instead. That means in just 2 years it's depreciated by 46.48%, or a total loss of £33,000, £1,000 more than the Taycan. It's not actually related directly to the M4 or Coupe 4 Series though, it's related to the 4 Series Grand Coupe instead, hence this car is a 5-door liftback or fastback design. I think what's nice about this though is that it doesn't look too different to any other BMW, so driving it doesn't make you think you're in something completely alien. Kind of like when I drove the i8 a few weeks ago, go check that video out if you haven't already by the way. In M50 spec with the M Sport Pro package, these things actually look incredibly mean too, pretty burly like an M car, just without the full prowess of an M, with the focus instead being on tech to help it be that bit more efficient, like energy recoup from braking with 3 adjustable regenerative modes. The benefit of buying into a BMW electric car too is that the i sub-brand of BMW has been around longer than many other brands on this list, with the i3 and i8 as great examples. So from an L&D perspective they're doing pretty well, hence these will manage around 367 miles of range, massively outstripping the Porsche and Audi. It's had a couple of recalls though, but most problems have been tech related unsurprisingly. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you are, then do hit the like button and subscribe as well if you're new. And let me know in the comments down below, would you rather buy a new or used electric car? A lot of people have been struggling with buying electric used cars because of the battery issues longer term, but at the same time that depreciation is pretty insane. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. It's the only non-German car on the list, taking second thanks to its depreciation levels, the Tesla Model Y, specifically with the slightly higher output of 420 brake horsepower, which gets to 60 in 3.5 seconds, making it quite comfortably the quickest car on the list despite its size. I'll be honest with you, I've never been a fan of the way this car looks outside or in, but the fact that it's so quick, I'm sure brings its own beauty to whoever's launching it. I do fear that the novelty of 0 to 60 times in some of these cars does wear off quite quick though. Either way, brand new or used, this is the cheapest car on the list. In 2022 it would have cost you around £60,000, but today you'll be looking at spending around the 32k mark at the bottom end, with plenty sitting at around £36,000. That means in just 2 years these have dropped by £28,000, the least total amount on the list, but works out at being 46.67% all in, so again slightly more than the BMW. This was the 5th ever Tesla model, sitting in the mid-size crossover SUV class, and it was based on the Model 3, which I have driven, hence the two cars share quite a lot of similarities. I basically think about the Model Y as a raised and more bubbly Model 3 to keep things simple in my head. And if you want a car that's all about the extra fun techie bits, this is probably the car to choose from this list, as Tesla are all about those fun bits. I would suggest personally that the large center console screen and all it can do is a great addition, but it's not enough to make for what is quite a bare looking interior compared to the other cars on this list, though of course it will be perfectly good looking for other people, so don't feel like you have to take my opinion as gospel. Generally reliability has been good on these so far, but there have been complaints about build quality in particular, with silly things breaking like seatbelt buckles and that kind of stuff. Taking the top spot on this list is the most expensive car, the car that's lost the most actual value, and the car that's depreciated the most in terms of percent in just 2 years. It's the Mercedes-Benz EQS 450 Plus, which also makes it the slowest car on the list, given this EV puts out 354 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 5.9 seconds, almost 2 seconds slower than the e-Tron, which is the next slowest. Performance aside though, it's also the most luxurious car on the list, given it's the only one specifically built for the full-size luxury car class. Luxury does come at a cost of course though, and brand new these would have run you around £105,500 in 2022, whereas today they start at the 55k mark, with many available for under £63,000. That means in the space of 2 years they've dropped by around £50,500, or 47.87% total. That's £25,250 per year of it being run around, which is just ridiculous. That's like a London graduate starting salary lost every single year of this car existing. Compared to the Mercedes S-Class, it's night and day, which I think is a scary sign for the sales of future luxury EVs. It was based on the Vision EQS concept car that arrived back in 2019, and if I'm honest, it kinda looks like a dull version of that concept. That's not to say that it's a bad looking car, but just compare it to the Vision, which is a pretty good looking car, and I personally think it's a bit of a downgrade. However, the design wasn't focused on making me happy, it was was focused on making the car the most aerodynamic car being produced on release, which is obviously very important from an efficiency perspective, hence the flowing lines and slightly anonymous looks overall. Its platform was entirely new and entirely EV focused, and in terms of luxury it gets an interior that does a great job of combining a futuristic vibe with typical S-Class luxury. Though it's not on S-Class levels, it's not bad in there. If anything, the fact that they're so cheap makes them a much better proposition, because you're getting luxury that isn't a million miles away from the S-Class without S-Class spend. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, then do hit the like button and subscribe as well if you're new. Click up here if you want to see some other fast depreciating petrol and diesel cars. Subscribe as well down here. Massive thanks to you guys and to the patrons as well for their support. I'll see you in the next one.